I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest. The sight before me was like a punch to the gut, leaving me breathless and dizzy. Ethan, my husband of 15 years, was hastily stuffing clothes into a suitcase. "What's going on?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes wide with surprise. "Claire, I didn't hear you come in." "Obviously," I said, my shock quickly turning to anger. "Are you going somewhere?" He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd always found endearing. Now it just made my blood boil. "I was going to tell you tonight. I've met someone else." The world tilted on its axis. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. "Someone else? What do you mean, someone else?" "Her name is Jenny," Ethan said, his voice softening. "We've been seeing each other for a few months now." "I'm sorry, Claire. I never meant for this to happen." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that surprised even me. "Never meant for it to happen? What? Did you trip and fall into her bed?" Ethan winced. "It's not like that. We fell in love." "Love?" I spat the word out like it was poison. "You don't know the meaning of the word." I stormed into the room, yanking open drawers and pulling out his clothes. I threw them at him, not caring where they landed. "Get out," I hissed. "Get out of my house." "Claire, please," Ethan pleaded. "Can we talk about this?" "Talk?" I whirled on him, my eyes blazing. "You want to talk now? After you've been sneaking around behind my back for months?" A knock at the front door interrupted our argument. I heard Emma's voice calling out, "Claire? Are you home?" "In here, Emma." I called back, my voice cracking. Emma appeared in the doorway, taking in the scene before her. Her eyes widened as she looked from me to Ethan to the half-packed suitcase on the bed. "What's going on?" she asked, moving to stand beside me. "Ethan's leaving," I said, my voice flat. "He's found someone else. Someone named Jenny." Emma's face hardened. "Is that true, Ethan?" He nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt anyone." "But you did," I said, my voice breaking. "You hurt me, Ethan. You destroyed everything we built together." Emma put her arm around me, her presence a comforting anchor. "I think you should leave now, Ethan," she said, her voice cold. "Claire doesn't need to see any more of this." Ethan nodded, zipping up his suitcase. He paused at the door, looking back at me. "I really am sorry, Claire. I hope someday you can forgive me." As the front door closed behind him, my legs gave out. Emma caught me, easing me down onto the bed. "It's okay," she murmured, stroking my hair. "Let it out. I'm here." And so I did. I cried until I had no tears left, my body shaking with sobs. Emma held me through it all, her quiet strength keeping me from falling apart completely. When I finally calmed down, Emma handed me a tissue. "What do you need?" she asked gently. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I need to figure out what happens next. How do I even begin to pick up the pieces? Emma squeezed my hand. "One step at a time, honey. We'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this." As I looked around the room, my eyes fell on a framed photo of Ethan and me on our wedding day. With a sudden burst of anger, I grabbed it and hurled it against the wall. The glass shattered, scattering across the floor like the broken pieces of my life. "Well," Emma said, a hint of a smile in her voice, "I'd say that's a good start." I stared at the pile of divorce papers on my kitchen table, my hand shaking as I reached for the pen. Emma sat beside me, a steady presence in the storm of emotions swirling through me. "You don't have to do this today," she said gently. "There's no rush." I shook my head. "No, I need to get this over with. I can't keep living in limbo." As I signed my name on the dotted line, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. But with it came a new, crushing realization. I was alone for the first time in 15 years. "What now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emma squeezed my hand. "Now we celebrate. You're free, Claire. It's time to start living for yourself." She pulled me to my feet and dragged me to the closet. Put on something nice. We're going out. An hour later, we were seated at a trendy bar downtown, colorful cocktails in front of us. The buzz of conversation and laughter surrounded us, a stark contrast to the quiet emptiness of my house. To new beginnings, Emma said, raising her glass. I clinked mine against hers, forcing a smile. To new beginnings. As I sipped my drink, I caught sight of a familiar face across the bar. My heart dropped to my stomach. It was Ethan, and he wasn't alone. A young woman hung on his arm, giggling at something he said. She couldn't have been more than 25, with long blonde hair and a figure that made me suddenly self-conscious of my own body. Is that her? Emma asked, following my gaze. Jenny. I nodded, unable to speak. Seeing them together, so soon after signing the divorce papers, felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Let's go, I said, standing abruptly. I can't be here. But it was too late. Ethan had spotted us. He hesitated for a moment, then started making his way over, Jenny in tow. Claire, he said, his voice tentative. I didn't expect to see you here. Clearly, I replied, my tone icy. Jenny looked between us, her eyes widening with realization. Oh, you must be the ex-wife. Ethan's told me so much about you. I raised an eyebrow. Has he now? All good things, I hope. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Jenny, maybe we should dash. Oh, don't leave on my account, I interrupted. I was just leaving anyway. Enjoy your evening. As I turned to go, Jenny's voice stopped me. I hope there are no hard feelings. I mean, these things happen, right? People grow apart. And Ethan's so much happier now. The bar fell silent. Or maybe that was just the blood rushing in my ears. I turned back slowly, fixing Jenny with a steely gaze. You're right, these things do happen, I said, my voice dangerously calm. But let me give you a piece of advice, Jenny. Men who cheat with you will cheat on you. Remember that when he trades you in for a newer model in a few years. With that, I walked out, head held high. Emma hurried after me, barely containing her laughter. Did you see their faces? She said as we stepped into the cool night air. That was amazing, Claire. But I wasn't listening. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a hollow ache in my chest. I thought I was over him, I whispered. Why does it still hurt so much? Emma wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Healing takes time, honey. But you took a big step tonight. You stood up for yourself. That's something to be proud of. As we walked home, I realized she was right. For the first time since Ethan left, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe I wasn't okay yet, but I would be. And that was enough for now. The sun warmed my face as I strolled through the park, savoring a rare moment of peace. Work had been hectic lately, but Emma had insisted I take a day off to recharge my batteries. I had to admit she was right. The fresh air and gentle breeze were doing wonders for my frazzled nerves. As I rounded a bend in the path, I froze. There, not 20 feet away, were Ethan and Jenny, cuddled up on a park bench. My heart raced and I considered turning back, but it was too late. Ethan had spotted me. Claire, he called, surprise evident in his voice. I plastered on a smile and approached them, my stomach churning. Ethan, Jenny. What a surprise. Jenny looked me up and down, her lips curling into a smirk. Claire, darling. I hardly recognized you without your work clothes. How quaint you look. I bristled at her condescending tone but kept my cool. Well, even I need a day off sometimes. Ethan cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. It's good to see you, Claire. How have you been? Before I could answer, Jenny cut in. Oh, Ethan, we should tell her our news. She thrust her left hand forward, a massive diamond glittering on her ring finger. We're engaged. The world tilted sideways. I struggled to keep my composure as Jenny prattled on about wedding plans and honeymoon destinations. That's wonderful, I managed to choke out. Congratulations. Ethan at least had the decency to look embarrassed. Claire, I dash. No need to explain, I interrupted, finding my voice. I hope you'll be very happy together. Jenny giggled, a sound that grated on my nerves. Oh, we are. And Claire, You simply must come to the wedding. It'll be the event of the season. I'm sure we can find you a nice little corner table." Something inside me snapped. "Actually, Jenny, I'm afraid I'll have to decline. You see, I'll be far too busy running my father's company to attend." Their jaws dropped in unison. Ethan sputtered, "Your father's company? But I thought Dash." "Things change, Ethan," I said coolly. "People grow, evolve, move on to bigger and better things." Jenny's eyes narrowed. "Well, isn't that nice for you? I'm sure it's very fulfilling in its own little way." I laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. "Oh, it is. But you wouldn't understand, would you, Jenny? The satisfaction of earning something on your own merits, rather than latching onto someone else's success." Ethan stood up, his face flushed. "That's enough, Claire. You're out of line." "Am I?" I countered, my voice rising. "Or are you just uncomfortable with the truth? That you threw away 15 years for a trophy wife who can't see past her own reflection?" Jenny gasped, her eyes filling with tears. "How dare you? Ethan, are you going to let her talk to me like that?" But Ethan was staring at me, a mixture of shock and something else, regret, in his eyes. "Claire, I dash." I held up a hand, suddenly drained. "Save it, Ethan. I don't need your explanations or your pity. Enjoy your perfect life with your perfect fiancé. I hope it's everything you dreamed of." With that, I turned on my heel and walked away, my head held high. As I reached the park exit, I heard Ethan calling my name, but I didn't look back. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Emma. "How's your day off going?" her text read. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "It's been enlightening," I typed back. "Can you meet me for dinner? I think I'm ready to start planning that revenge we talked about." As I hit send, a slow smile spread across my face. Ethan and Jenny had no idea what was coming, and for the first time in months, I felt truly alive. The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake. I fumbled for it in the darkness, my heart racing as I saw the caller ID, Mom. "Claire, it's your father." Her voice trembled. "He's had a heart attack. We're at the hospital." The world tilted on its axis. I threw on clothes, my mind reeling. Dad, the pillar of strength in our family, the man who built our company from the ground up. How could this happen? At the hospital, I found Mom pacing the waiting room, her face ashen. "They're still with him," she said, collapsing into my arms. Hours crawled by. Finally, a doctor emerged, his expression grave. "Mr. Thompson is stable, but he'll need extensive recovery time. He won't be able to work for the foreseeable future." Relief washed over me, followed quickly by a wave of panic. The company, what would happen to it? As if reading my thoughts, Mom squeezed my hand. "Claire, your father. He's been wanting to talk to you about the business. I think it's time." When we were finally allowed to see Dad, my breath caught in my throat. He looked so small in the hospital bed, a far cry from the larger-than-life figure I'd always known. "Claire," he said, his voice weak but determined, "I need you to take over the company." I blinked, sure I'd misheard. "What?" "Dad, I can't possibly dash." "You can," he interrupted. "You're smart, capable, and you know the business inside and out. It's time, sweetheart. I've been wanting to step back, give you the reins." This just sped up the timeline a bit. My mind raced. Me, running the company? The responsibility was overwhelming. But what about the board? "They'll never accept me as CEO." Dad's eyes hardened. "They will if they know what's good for them. You're my daughter, and you're more than qualified. It's your birthright, Claire. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." As I left the hospital that night, my head spun with the enormity of what lay ahead. I called Emma, needing her steadying presence. "You've got this, Claire," she said firmly. "You're stronger than you know." The next morning, I strode into the company headquarters, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. The board was already assembled, their faces a mix of concern and skepticism. "Gentlemen," I began, my voice stronger than I felt. "As you know, my father has suffered a heart attack. He's stable, but he'll be unable to run the company for some time. In light of this, he's appointed me as acting CEO. A murmur ran through the room. Harold, the most senior board member, spoke up. With all due respect, Ms. Thompson, you lack the experience. I lack nothing. I cut him off, channeling every ounce of my father's authority. I've been groomed for this position my entire life. I know this company, its people, and its potential better than anyone in this room. I laid out my vision for the company's future, watching their expressions shift from doubt to grudging respect. By the end of the meeting, even Harold was nodding along. As I left the boardroom, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ethan. Heard about your dad. Hope he's okay. Let me know if you need anything. I stared at the message, a complex mix of emotions swirling through me. Part of me wanted to reach out, to fall back into the comfort of our shared history. But as I looked around at the office, my office now, I realized something profound. I didn't need Ethan. I didn't need anyone's approval or support. For the first time in my life, I was standing on my own 2 feet, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With a smile, I deleted the message without replying. It was time to write my own story on my own terms, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. I sat in my office, staring at the invitation in my hands. The Riverfront Business Association's annual dinner cruise was coming up, and as the new CEO of Thompson Enterprises, I was expected to attend. My stomach churned at the thought of schmoozing with the city's elite, especially knowing Ethan and Jenny would likely be there. A knock on the door interrupted my brooding. Emma poked her head in, a mischievous glint in her eye. Ready for our lunch date? Over salads at our favorite cafe, I confided my concerns about the cruise. Emma listened intently, then leaned forward with a conspiratorial whisper. What if we turned this into an opportunity? What do you mean? I asked, intrigued. Well, my son Jonathan is in town. He's about Jenny's age, devastatingly handsome and single. What if we arranged for him to attend the cruise and distract Jenny? I nearly choked on my water. Emma, are you suggesting we set up your son to seduce Ethan's fiancée? She shrugged, grinning. I'm just saying, it might be interesting to see how devoted Jenny really is to Ethan when a younger, more attractive option comes along. The idea was tempting, I had to admit, but could I really stoop to that level? As if reading my thoughts, Emma added softly, Claire, you deserve some justice after what they put you through. That evening, I found myself on the phone with Jonathan, explaining the situation. To my surprise, he was more than willing to play along. Anything for my mom's best friend, he said cheerfully. Plus, it sounds like fun. The night of the cruise arrived all too quickly. I stood at the dock, my heart racing as I watched the other guests board. Emma squeezed my arm reassuringly. You look stunning, Claire. Remember, you're the CEO now. Own it. I took a deep breath and stepped onto the gangplank. As I made my way to the upper deck, I caught sight of Ethan and Jenny. She was hanging on his arm, giggling at something he said. The sight still stung, but not as much as it once had. Suddenly, Jonathan appeared at my side. Ready for some fun, Aunt Claire? He whispered with a wink. I watched as he made his way over to Ethan and Jenny, smoothly inserting himself into their conversation. Within minutes, Jenny was laughing at his jokes, her hand on his arm. Ethan's face darkened with jealousy. As the evening progressed, I mingled with the other guests, discussing business and making connections. But I couldn't help stealing glances at the unfolding drama. Jonathan and Jenny were dancing close, while Ethan sulked at the bar. Emma sidled up to me, grinning. Looks like the plan is working perfectly. But as I watched Jenny throw her head back in laughter at something Jonathan said, a wave of unease washed over me. Was this really who I wanted to be? Stooping to their level, playing games with people's emotions? Just then, Ethan caught my eye from across the room. The look on his face, a mixture of hurt, anger, and something else I couldn't quite place, made my stomach churn. In that moment, I made a decision. I strode across the deck, my heart pounding. Jonathan, I said, tapping him on the shoulder, can I speak with you for a moment? As we stepped away, I saw confusion and then understanding dawn on his face. "We're calling it off, aren't we?" he asked quietly. I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "This isn't me. I'm better than this." Jonathan smiled, squeezing my hand. "You are, Aunt Claire. You really are." As I turned back to the party, I caught Ethan's eye again. This time, I held his gaze steadily, feeling a newfound strength coursing through me. I didn't need petty revenge schemes. I was Claire Thompson, CEO of Thompson Enterprises, and I was more than enough on my own. The night was still young, and I had a company to run and a life to rebuild. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited about what the future held. The dinner cruise was in full swing, the deck alive with the chatter of Riverfront's business elite. I stood at the railing, watching the city lights shimmer on the water, trying to calm my nerves. This was my moment to shine as the new CEO of Thompson Enterprises. But the weight of expectations felt crushing. Claire Thompson as I live and breathe. I turned to see Harold, the senior board member who had initially doubted me, approaching with a champagne flute in hand. "Harold," I greeted him, mustering a confident smile. "Enjoying the evening?" He nodded, his eyes appraising me. "I must say, you've exceeded expectations these past few months. The company's thriving under your leadership." Pride swelled in my chest, but before I could respond, a familiar voice cut through the air. "Well, if it isn't the workaholic herself." Jenny sauntered over, Ethan in tow. She was draped in a designer gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. "Jenny, Ethan," I acknowledged, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "What a surprise to see you here." Jenny's eyes narrowed. "Oh, we wouldn't miss this for the world. Though I'm surprised you found time in your busy schedule to attend. Don't you have a company to run into the ground?" Harold bristled beside me, but I held up a hand to stop him. "Actually, Jenny, Thompson Enterprises is doing better than ever. We've just secured a major international contract that will double our revenue next year." Ethan's eyebrows shot up, genuine surprise on his face. "That's impressive, Claire. Congratulations." Jenny's smile faltered for a moment before she recovered. "Well, isn't that nice? I suppose even small companies can have their little successes." I felt a surge of anger, but channeled it into determination. "Small? I think you're mistaken, Jenny. Thompson Enterprises is now the largest employer in the city. In fact," I turned to Harold, "why don't we make the announcement now?" Harold beamed, raising his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?" The deck fell silent as all eyes turned to us. I stepped forward, my heart pounding but my voice clear. "As CEO of Thompson Enterprises, I'm thrilled to announce that we've just acquired Riverfront Tech, making us the leading technology firm on the East Coast." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan's jaw drop. "Furthermore," I continued, riding the wave of confidence, "we'll be expanding our operations globally, creating thousands of new jobs right here in our city." Applause erupted around us. Business cards were thrust in my direction, congratulations pouring in from all sides. Through the chaos, I caught sight of Jenny's face. A mixture of shock and envy etched across her features. As the excitement died down, Ethan approached me, his expression unreadable. "Claire, can we talk?" "Privately." I hesitated, then nodded, following him to a quiet corner of the deck. "I had no idea," he began, running a hand through his hair. "The company, your success. You've really come into your own." "I have," I agreed, meeting his gaze steadily. He took a deep breath. "I've been thinking. Maybe I made a mistake. With us, I mean. Seeing you tonight so confident and successful. It reminds me of why I fell in love with you in the first place." My heart skipped a beat, old feelings threatening to resurface. For a moment, I imagined reconciling, going back to the life we once had. But then I caught sight of Jenny across the deck, watching us with narrowed eyes, and reality came crashing back. "Ethan," I said, my voice firm, "what we had is in the past. I've moved on, and so should you." As I walked away, head held high, I felt a mixture of triumph and sadness. I had won in more ways than one, but the victory felt hollow, leaving me wondering, What now? Where do I go from here, now that I've reached the top? The night wasn't over, and as I rejoined the party, I couldn't shake the feeling that the biggest challenge was yet to come. The dinner cruise was winding down, but the night was far from over. As I mingled with the last remaining guests, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find Ethan, his face flushed and his eyes pleading. "Claire, please. Can we talk? Somewhere private." Against my better judgment, I nodded and followed him to a secluded corner of the deck. The city lights twinkled in the distance, a stark contrast to the turmoil I felt inside. "I've made a terrible mistake," Ethan began, his voice cracking. "Seeing you tonight, so successful and confident, I realize what I threw away. I want you back, Claire. We can start over, be a family again." For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old longing. But then I remembered the pain, the betrayal, the nights spent crying myself to sleep. "Ethan," I said, my voice steady, "what we had is gone. You made your choice." "But I've changed," he insisted, reaching for my hand. I pulled away, my resolve strengthening. "Have you?" I challenged. "Or are you just attracted to my success now?" Before he could respond, Jenny's shrill voice cut through the air. "Ethan, what are you doing?" She stormed over, her face a mask of fury. "I knew it. You're trying to win her back, aren't you? After everything we've built together." Ethan stammered, caught between us. I watched as he fumbled for words, realizing that he hadn't changed at all. He was still the same indecisive, selfish man who had broken my heart. In that moment, a calm settled over me. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small, wrapped box. "I was going to give this to you earlier, Ethan," I said, handing it to him. "A peace offering of sorts." Confused, he unwrapped it to reveal a cheap wristwatch. His brow furrowed as he examined it. "I don't understand," he muttered. "It's a reminder," I explained, my voice carrying across the deck. Several nearby guests turned to listen. "A reminder of what you valued in our relationship. Surface-level attraction, fleeting pleasures, the illusion of success." Jenny snorted. "Please, as if your little company compares to what Ethan and I have." I turned to her, my gaze steady. "You're right, Jenny. It doesn't compare. Because what I have is real. I've built something lasting, something that matters. Can you say the same?" Her face crumpled, the bravado falling away. For the first time, I saw the insecurity behind her flashy exterior. Ethan stepped forward, his face a mixture of shame and desperation. "Claire, please. I know I messed up, but I love you. I always have." The words I had once longed to hear now rang hollow. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No anger, no love, no regret. Just a profound sense of closure. "No, Ethan," I said softly. "You don't love me. You love the idea of me, the successful CEO who can boost your ego. But that's not who I am, not anymore." I turned to address the small crowd that had gathered. "I am Claire Thompson, CEO of Thompson Enterprises. I am a daughter, a friend, and a leader, and I don't need anyone's validation to know my worth." With that, I walked away, head held high. I heard Jenny's indignant sputtering, Ethan's pleading calls, but I didn't look back. As I reached the gangplank, I saw Emma waiting for me, a proud smile on her face. "You did it," she said, pulling me into a hug. I nodded, tears pricking at my eyes. "I did. But why do I feel so empty?" Emma squeezed my hand. "Because this is just the beginning, Claire. The real journey starts now." As we walked off the boat together, I realized she was right. I had won the battle, but the war for my own happiness and fulfillment was far from over. The future stretched out before me, uncertain but full of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where it would lead. 6 months after the dinner cruise, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my blazer. The woman staring back at me was a far cry from the broken shell I'd been a year ago. Today was the grand opening of Claire's Place, my new chain of budget-friendly restaurants, and I could hardly believe how far I'd come. As I drove to the flagship location, memories of the past year flashed through my mind. The betrayal, the pain, the struggle to find myself again. But also the triumphs, the growth, and the unexpected joys I'd discovered along the way. The parking lot was already full when I arrived. Emma was waiting for me at the entrance, beaming with pride. "Ready for this, CEO?" she asked, linking her arm through mine. I took a deep breath and nodded. As I'll ever be. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was a blur of flashing cameras and congratulatory handshakes. As I stood at the podium to give my speech, I caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd. Ethan. For a moment, I faltered. But then I saw Emma giving me a thumbs up, and my resolve strengthened. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady. "Welcome to Claire's Place. This restaurant chain is more than just a business venture for me. It's a testament to resilience, to second chances, and to the power of believing in yourself." As I spoke about my vision for affordable, quality dining experiences for all, I saw Ethan listening intently, a mix of emotions playing across his face. After the speech, as guests milled about sampling the menu, Ethan approached me. "Congratulations, Claire," he said softly. "This is incredible." I studied him, noticing the absence of his flashy watch and designer clothes. "Thank you, Ethan. How have you been?" He shrugged, a rueful smile on his face. "Honestly, I've been doing a lot of soul-searching. Jenny and we didn't work out. I realized I had a lot of growing up to do." I nodded, surprised by the lack of bitterness I felt. "I'm glad you're figuring things out." "Claire," he hesitated. "I know it's too late for us, but I want you to know how sorry I am, and how proud I am of what you've accomplished." For a moment, I saw a glimmer of the man I'd once loved. But that chapter of my life was closed. "Thank you, Ethan. I wish you the best." As he walked away, I felt a final weight lift from my shoulders. I was free, truly free, of the past that had held me back for so long. The rest of the evening passed in a whirlwind of activity. As the last guests left and the staff began cleaning up, I found myself alone in the dining room. I sank into a chair, exhausted but exhilarated. Emma joined me, sliding a glass of champagne across the table. "To new beginnings," she toasted. I clinked my glass against hers, smiling. "And to old friends who see us through." As we sat there, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment. The pain of betrayal had been transformed into a source of strength. The loneliness I'd feared had become an opportunity for self-discovery. And the revenge I'd once craved had given way to something far more satisfying. Personal growth and success on my own terms. "You know," I said to Emma, "a year ago I thought my life was over. Now I feel like it's just beginning." She squeezed my hand. "That's because it is, Claire. The best is yet to come." As I looked around at my new restaurant, at the life I'd built from the ashes of my old one, I knew she was right. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where it would lead. I raised my glass one more time. "To the journey ahead," I said softly. And as the first light of dawn peeked through the windows, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them. Not as Ethan's ex-wife, not as